Welcome to the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, or AANHPI, Speaker Showcase. Let's welcome your host and MC, John Chen.
Get ready to engage. This gentleman is the #1 Amazon hot new release author of engaging virtual meetings. He can juggle 12 screens at a time. He ran a hybrid meeting in 8 languages. And now he's going to engage with you. Put your hands in the air for John Chen.
John Chen, the engaging meeting machine.
Gung Hei Fat Choi, or Happy Lunar New Year. I'm John Chen, CEO of Engaging Meetings and one of 600 National Speakers Association certified speaking professionals. You're in the 3rd annual Speaker Showcase, and today we're going to feature all AANHPI, or again, Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander speakers who are helping people around the world. You know, I believe that #1, Asian Pacific Islanders, we belong on the stage. We've been teaching for years, and it's one of the things I think it's really important is to showcase the amazing work that people are doing around the world. Now, the other challenges, though, in studying us over at least the last couple decades is that AANHPIs are underrepresented. The average should be at least 7% here in America, and it's as high as 50% in some counties. And that if you go to your next conference, do count. Right after 100 speakers, there should be at least 7 Asian Pacific Islanders. And I've attended many large conferences where the number is 0. So if you are in charge of hiring speakers, think about that, about putting representation on the stage, especially representation that looks like your membership, right, your community, or whatever that you represent. You know, another challenge that has been discovered too in the research is that Asian Pacific Islanders have over 200% advanced degrees over the national average here in the United States, which is like bachelor's, master's, PhDs, and higher. And that, but less than 50% get executive roles, the CXO level jobs in nonprofit, government, and corporate. And so I'm the CEO of my own company, and one of the things that that makes me a unicorn, which is that there are very few Asian Pacific Islander CEOs. There's definitely not enough in the statistics part. So you might hear about a few things today, things like the bamboo ceiling, right? So many women talked about hitting the glass ceiling, which is their inability to raise up to this executive level. Here in Asian Pacific Islander land, it's actually called the bamboo ceiling. When you hit the ceiling where you are unable to, no matter what you do, however merit or how much benefit you've created to the company, to get into the executive role. And we'll talk about breaking through that ideally. There are many people today who have done that. We'll also talk about something about allyship. I did a great program at Meetings Professionals Internationals last year. And in the elevator, someone gave me a great comment. He goes, "I didn't even know what allyship is until I attended your program." And so the short definition in allyship is that if you are not Asian Pacific Islander, but you care, you know, one of the things in allyship is to help out. So, for instance, I am a woman ally, right? There are definitely places on the stage where there is not stage equity. There is not an equal number of men and women on a stage at a conference. And so I do my best in whatever ways that I can to help get women on stage, whether it might be coaching, it might be able to, if I'm in the selection committee or other types of things like that. That is what allyship is helping someone else out, and something I naturally do. I was just talking with one of our speakers, Cherry Rose Tan, who's got a goal of doing more social media, and especially on LinkedIn. And I hit a LinkedIn post with 80,000 impressions, which is a lot more than my usual. And it was on the simple basis of all I did was move over in an airline flight to allow the steward to move over and have room to help guests while letting them pass. And they gave me a pin and 5,000 extra miles and a credit. And I put the note on social media, and it blew up. And so I just said, that allyship has a benefit, and allyship has a hidden benefit. It's actually was my most popular post last year. And the last term you're going to hear is model minority. Model minority often refers to the fact that, oh, Asian Pacific Islanders don't need help, right? They're already doing well in school. They're getting jobs, right? And so there's lots of different things around there, and also says that you might characterize or stereotype that all Asians are doing well. That's part of the model minority. And you also find that that's not true. Things that you might not know about me was that I was a sponsored amateur skateboarder growing up. And I also was the leader of multiple punk rock bands where I taught my friends how to play. And those are not things that you would not normally hear. Jessie is in our audience shaking her head yes. And so that's the real stories. And that's what I want you to hear. Here is that Asian Pacific Islanders have different experiences than what maybe if you only know the stereotypes, that's what you're going to learn. So I'm going to open up with a story that most of you don't know. So if I said, do you know what a paper sun is? Shake your head yes or shake your head no. Do you know what a paper sun is? Jessie says no. Cherry might know. I don't know. We'll see. Well, that's one of the things I'm going to share with you in my opening part here is what is a paper sun? And don't worry about being wrong, especially you, Jessie. Thank you so much for answering. Is that 99% of America doesn't know. They just don't know. So let's start along here. And these are the type of stories you're going to hear today. Everyone's going to have about 15 minutes to speak, and then we'll also have a little time to talk with them before we move on to the next speakers. And of course, anything can happen here at AANHPI Speaker Showcase. So let's talk a little more about the paper sun. This is Wong Wah Gum. This is my grandfather. And he was a poor boy in a city where he was actually orphaned at a young age. So his uncle helped raise him. And he lived in a little village called Lung Tao Wan. Translation was dragon head turned because this ridge of the mountain was like the ridge of a mountain of a dragon, and the head was supposed to the river turning was supposed to represent the head of the dragon. It's a very small village, and he helped grow rice or did farming while he was there. So while this was happening, this is around the 1800s, is that something called gum san, stories of gun san were going around China. And the translation is the land of the golden hills, where by the time people heard these stories in China, they said people were picking up gold nuggets off the street. This is the gold rush. This is the .com of the 1800s. So every Chinese person really wanted to go to America to, improve their fortune for themselves and for their families. But there's a little problem. It's called the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Some well-meaning people in America who thought all the Chinese were taking other jobs, for instance, in the railroad, actually passed a law. And it's actually the first law that is passed against a race, not a color. And they excluded, there are hundreds of thousands of Chinese who were immigrating into America, building the railroad, often taking the most dangerous jobs, and it was whittled down to 106 a year, 106. Now, there's a little loophole in the law, and the loophole in the law says that if you're the son of a merchant, you are a naturalized citizen. So a few things started to happen. In 1906, a big earthquake hit San Francisco. But it's not the earthquake that really destroys the town. What happens is that it cracked all the gas lines, and as they woke up the next morning to try and light their stove to cook breakfast, they lit the whole town on fire, and it burned everything, including the courthouse. And inside the courthouse were the birth and death records. And so when they reestablished the courthouse, people in the courthouse said, hey, all of San Francisco, if you had kids in the last, 6 to 8 years or whatever, come on by and we'll write you a new birth certificate. So every single, and they were looking for business people. Again, they were more educated than like an uneducated, line worker. So in this case, every Chinese business guy in San Francisco says, yeah, I got 4 sons. Yeah, I got 5 sons. And that's why they're called paper sons. They never existed. So for the equivalent of about 1912, by the time the birth certificates made it over to China and they were actually sold on the market, it cost about $100 per year old. So it cost $2,000 for my 20-year-old grandfather in about 1912 to 1917, which is a lot of money. And you get 3 things. You get a birth certificate. You get a third-class ticket on a ship, which means you ride in the bottom with the animals. And you get a book about your fake family. And so in that book is all the facts about your new family. And you have to memorize them because if you get the answers wrong, you'll get deported. And they'll send you back, of course, to where you came from. So you have to memorize this. And the trip takes about 3 months from China on a ship to America. And so as they go on through, you got to sit here and study this book. And if you don't die of dysentery, right, you have to sit around and try and remember all of these facts. Now, 2 days before they hit America, all the Chinese would get up on the edge of the boat with their books, and they would have to ceremoniously throw their books into the ocean. Again, you can't be caught with these books, especially when you see your next destination, because again, that would be cheating. So when they got there, if you've ever been to San Francisco, you might have been to Alcatraz Island. Right next to it is Angel Island. And if you haven't been to Angel Island, I highly recommend you make a visit to it the next time. Make a day trip to Angel Island and you can see these actual items. Angel Island is the Ellis Island of the West, and it's where everyone came to immigrate. And they would come across this dock, which still doesn't exist today, but they do have photographs of it. And this was your first welcome to America. But this is not what my grandfather had experienced. He got experienced to this. Men in white lab coats who separated the men from the women from the children and spoke absolutely no Chinese. And the color white, if you don't know, in the Chinese culture is the color of a ghost. Yeah, these are doctors separating people from quarantine, but nobody knew that, and now your family was torn apart if you did travel together as a family. Welcome to America. In addition to that, the conditions were deplorable. All right, they ran out of water because it's an island. The food was horrible, and if you can see here, the bunks were 3 high, and in a space that would normally, in American conditions standards, would hold 100 people. They had 400 people in this space, and so this is where they had to stay, and they had to stay anywhere from 2 weeks to 18 months. When you visit now, they actually recreated the bunks, and you can actually walk amongst the bunks and see what it might be like if you were actually inside this immigration facility. So while you waited, what you were waiting for was your interrogation. And so in this interrogation, you got asked all these questions that were about, again, your fake family. And if you got them wrong, you got deported. Questions included things like, where does your cat like to sleep? How many stairs from the first to the second floor? How many windows face the west side? Who likes to come over on Friday? These are things that you might not even know about your own house at times. And again, if you got them wrong, you would be deported. Again, the conditions were deplorable, and many of the people who got stuck here were sad and depressed, and this was not what they thought. They were trying to come for picking up gold off the street, if you remember. And so they carved, one of their mental health ways of dealing with it was to carve poetry in the walls, and you can still see the poetry today carved in the wall. This is a recreated version of it, and let me just read the last 4 lines. At present, my application for admission has not yet been dismissed. As I record the cause of my situation, it really provokes anger. Sitting here, uselessly delayed, for long years and months, I am like a pigeon in a cage. When you failed, for those who know, is that in Chinese culture, we have something called saving face, which is that you want to look good, you also want to represent your people, your family, your company, whoever. And when you failed, 10% of 2 million failed. That means 200,000 people got deported back to their home country. And all this money that people loaned you went to waste. And instead of going home to face the shame, many of them committed suicide rather than lose face at home. So this became a life or death game to coming to America. Luckily, my grandfather got through. And he only knew 2 English words, Susan City. This is a little city here that is about an hour and a half from San Francisco. And there a job was waiting for him with the Army. He was able to work for $1 a week. He had to give back 75 cents in room and board. But over the course of 5 years, he was able to save 40 gold coins and nuggets. And he sewed them into a jacket so people wouldn't rip him off. And now he takes his next big risk. He leaves America and goes back to the village that he grew up from, and he gets the village matchmaker to choose a wife for him. And so this is Mei Lu Jin, which became our grandmother, known as Baba. And if you would repeat syllables twice as a form of a term of endearment for elders and other people and family members like that. So because she had a marriage certificate and he had the certificate, and also he was able to pay now at this point for a first class ticket instead of a third class ticket, she bypasses the whole system because she's married to him. And so they go into America, and over the course of time, they opened businesses, including a gardening business and eventually buying a grocery store. And they're able to raise 5 kids, 5 of them, and all of them went to college, all college graduates, right? 2 of them became PhDs, and 1 of them is my mom. You know, a side story I don't normally get to tell with this too is that Asian Pacific Islanders, or Chinese specifically, were not allowed to buy homes. I'll say that again. They were not allowed to buy homes. But the way my grandfather got around it is that they were allowed to buy commercial property. So he found a grocery store that had space above it, and they turned it into a home. And that was the only way at that time for Chinese to own property. So what's amazing around this is that without the bravery, right, of my grandfather, without the risk taking, without the a sense of adventure and the sense of entrepreneurship in such a way, I wouldn't be here in front of you, whether you're on a screen or whether you're in our virtual audience. But you know, now you know the story about what a paper son is. I love Renee. Renee's got a chat here. Says, "What an incredible family story." Jesse gave me the cry icon or emoji early on, and so yeah, these are the stories that that I think that need to be heard. And it's amazing. Again, this story has not been heard, and I have at least thought once again or twice in the last year, do I tell this story? Because this story right now, like my grandfather actually spent every day of his life worrying about being deported, right? So for everyone who's like in the ICE thing that's going on now, my grandfather lived with that every day. One time, actually, a police officer came up to him because he had something under his arm, under his jacket, and it looked suspicious, and the police told him, hands up. And he puts his hands up, and then what drops out is the book of the United States Constitution. He was studying for his citizenship test. And so he thought the police was going to deport him. They looked at the book. He let him go. He was never deported. But I have thought about it. Like, if I'm telling the story, is someone going to do the, you know, what's going to happen? I don't know. But all I can tell you is American citizen with an American passport. And it was all really due to my grandfather. So again, those are the type of stories that we're really looking for here. And that's what I want to share and represent to each of you. So, I hope is good. And our next guest just came in here and chatted. We're so glad that you are here. The world would be so much more boring, boring with you. So let's move on. Our next guest is here, our next presenter, and let me introduce her. She has inspired over 10,000 people. She is she is a PCC certified executive coach, and she's going to share from muted to mighty. Amplify your authentic leadership intact. Let's welcome Hope. Yeah. Hey, Hope. Oh, look, and you know what I love too? Every presenter I've talked to so far is wearing red.
Yay, right. A fire horse. This is the year. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. Fire horse. Did you do anything for Lunar New Year yesterday?
Yes, we made dumplings from scratch.
Yes. Yes. And
Yes.
has that been a family tradition for you for years, right?
Absolutely. Yes, we celebrate that every year. Make dumplings, watch the 4 hours of gala. It's just so fantastic.
Outstanding. All right. Well, are you ready to share your message from muted to mighty?
I am, and you just shared an immigrant story, and I'm going to share a different kind of immigrant story.
Outstanding. All right, Hope, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Back in my own country, I was totally on top of my game. I had my master's degree in aerospace engineering. I was a mechanical engineer. I was being considered as the next generation leader. I felt smart. I felt powerful. I felt I know what's going to happen to my life. I was so good. And then I decided I'm moving to the US to broaden my horizon. But suddenly, that mighty version of me disappeared completely. I was muted because my English was so poor. I couldn't understand the basic conversations. I couldn't explain my ideas, even with the help of my hands and every other part of my body. I became a shy person. I am very, very extroverted. So that was really hard to not be able to communicate. Have you ever felt like that? Maybe you're not an immigrant, but maybe there are times that you felt you have a lot to offer, but you were not heard and you were not seen. Okay, Jesse, you felt that. You're not alone. I spent 10 years in that quiet space, but then I started to work on myself. I joined Toastmasters. I wrote journals in English every night. I even hired a voice coach. I remember the exact night when everything changed. That was when I woke up. I remembered, wow, I was dreaming in English. That was my turning point. As John mentioned, today I am a professional speaker, a certified executive coach. I have given over 150 talks, including at several largest conferences in the world. I have impacted over 10,000 people. I went from muted to mighty. So today I want to share with you that you can too. I'm going to share my story, my journey, as well as a framework that you can leverage to amplify your leadership impact. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do
it.
this.
Let's do it. But first, I want us to interact with each other. It's not just me here talking. I want you to take a guess. Think of a number. What is the percentage in the US workforce that they strongly agree that their opinions doesn't count at work? What is the percentage that people in the US do not believe that their opinions count at work?
Jesse said 75. Stephanie said
51,
66.
75.
51.
More?
And then Jesse also has a 75.
Jesse won the game.
Oh, Jesse.
It's
Wait, here we go.
nearly 70%. They do not believe their opinions count. Think about that. When people do not believe their opinions matters, they're going to become silent, just like what I was when I first arrived. Because I'm not going to say anything, because it doesn't matter. People start to disengage, and they even stopped trying. They became numb. This is very costly. That is sad, Stephanie. But it's also very costly. Now, take another guess. How much does it cost the US because of the lost productivity? How much does it cost in a year? 2 trillion.
I'll guess 2 trillion.
You're bold, John.
Well, I do know the economic buying power of Asian Pacific Islanders is 1.2 trillion in America right now.
And you are exactly right. It is 2 trillion with a T.
Wow, I just guessed that.
So silence is very expensive, right? It's expensive for ourselves as well as for the companies, for the country. It's not just about money. It's also about our happiness. our joy when we go to work every single day. We want to feel happiness. So how can we change this? And I thought about it. Who do I blame? Well, in the past, I had a they, them. It may look like this. They don't like my accent. They care about football, baseball, hockey, which I didn't understand then. They may think I'm just an order taker because I couldn't explain my ideas. I would just listen and do it. But then I realized I had to change that they to a we. I stopped waiting for invitation. I started building my own eyelash shape, even though I don't drink because I have the typical Asian glow or Asian blush gene. But I started going to the sports bar with my colleagues because I know that's where conversation happens. They're talking about what's happening inside and outside of work, and that's where I build relationships with my team. I started to play soccer with them for corporate co-ed. I ran races with them. I skied with them. I invited myself to the table. So I want you to think about your own journey for a second. Are you waiting for the permission to speak? If you are, stop waiting because nobody is coming to get you. You want to invite yourself in. Just like what John is doing for all of us, we are going to showcase our own AANHPI speakers because we are all there. Event planners, meeting planners, please, we are here to engage, inspire your audience. We want to invite ourselves into your meetings and conferences. Take the front seat. Sit at the table, stay in the room, find those people who value you, who respect you, and choose them back. So in order for you to work well with other people, to put yourself in that room to be able to share your opinions, I want you to think about how we each communicate, because often we believe other people communicate in the same way as how we are doing. I want to introduce you a framework called the 5 Voices. It was developed by the giant worldwide founders. So everyone has all 5 of them, but one of them is your home base. It's your comfortable voice. It's like that homemade food you always go to. We're going to look at all the 5 voices one by one. While I am describing them, I want you to think about which voice is yours. Is this you? The first one is the nurture voice. The nurturer voice is you really care about people. You care about harmony. As Asian Americans, we truly care about harmonies, right? We don't want conflicts. And as a nurturer, you're the relational oil among the team so that we have great relationships. However, nurturers often stay quiet during the meeting. They are not sure whether they should speak up or not, and they don't want to create any conflict. Put into the chat, is this you? Are you a nurturer? It could be that you were born as a nurturer. It could be because of your upbringing, because your parents said you should always care about other people. Yes, yes, yes. The second voice is the creative. This is the type of people who have a lot of ideas, very creative. You don't have to be an artist to be creative. You just have a lot of outside the box ideas. And you can be the architect of a lot of things. However, sometimes it may be hard for you to communicate your ideas out. And when you try to communicate, and some other people will say, that's not going to work, and you are shut down. Who are creative? Remember, we all have some sort of creative energy. Yes, you are that too. Used to be, lost that. Okay, we need to find that creative child in us. We're all creative. The third voice is the guardian. The guardian is the people who are in love with logic, process, systems, and often they are trying to avoid risk because they're going to say, are you sure that's what we want to do? Are you sure this is going to work? What about that? However, when guardians are asking a lot of hard questions, they can be seen as defensive or annoying. But we do need to have guarding to make sure that we're not off guard. You are guarding. Yes, you are a guardian, right? It's all about system. Number 4 is the connector. The connector, by the name, it's like you connect to everybody. You know everybody. Like John, I think you are a connector. You know a lot of people. When you say, oh, you want to do this, I know who you can talk to. That's the type of people who hold the team together, who always know which stakeholder to talk to make a decision. But sometimes the connectors want you to value their connection. They will say, do you know that I introduced them to know each other, to give connectors some credibility and praise. That is the connector. The last one, number 5, is the pioneer. The pioneer are the people who want results, who want to move forward, who look at the future, who have a vision, and they're very strategic. They even have almost feel like an officer in the military, precise. This is what we're going to do, and what today, what need to be delivered. And they are very powerful, and they can be great leaders. However, for immature pioneers, sometimes people think they may be so ego-driven. That's what we need to pay attention to. Who is the pioneer? I am. Who else is a pioneer? Let me take a look. You're a pioneer. Yes, you are. Used to be that one too, Jesse. What are you now, Jesse? So I want to re-emphasize, we all have 5 voices. It is which one is the one that you normally use. And that is your foundational voice. And there is no voice, one voice is better than the other. We are all unique. What we need to understand is that other people may be communicating with a different voice than us. And just like 5 fingers, and we have all 5 voices depending on what time, what situation, we may choose which voice we use. For example, when I'm talking with my children, I remind myself to use more neutral voice than any other voices because I love them. I want them to feel that love. Let's talk about the team. If your team doesn't have all 5 voices, then you're missing something. For example, if your team is missing a creative, then your team may not be that innovative. If your team is missing a guardian, like I think Jesse said, you're a guardian, then your team may be taking way too much risk. Maybe you are spending all your money. You may even go broke. So every voice matters. Now, we learned about how to work with other people, how other people communicate. Sometimes our voices are muted, not because of people. It may be because the systems The systems may only promote people who are loud, such as pioneers, connectors, and guardians. Nurturers and creatives' voices are not that loud. Another example, the systems might hold meetings at a space that's not good for everybody, and not everyone likes it, such as playing golf. Not everyone playing golf, such as what I mentioned, hold a team building event in a sports bar. Not everyone like that either. So me as a leader, or you as a leader, we all have responsibilities to change the systems. For example, I was able to fix some unfair incentive bonus structure for my team. I was able to push more diverse speakers in tech conferences. And John, you are trying to elevate the AANHPI speakers. We have to own the system. We have to build new systems that work for everyone. But now I want you to think about the loudest voice may not be the voice you are communicating, may not be the voice that you are acting with other people, may not be the system. It may be here in your head, your inner voice. Every single day, we have tens of thousands of ideas and thoughts. Most of them are negative and repetitive. Maybe we're telling ourselves, I'm nobody. Why should anyone listen to me? This will never change. I'm not smart enough, blah, blah, blah. I want you to challenge those thoughts. If you think I am nobody, change that to I am somebody. If you're afraid of public speaking, say, I am afraid, but I am going to do it anyway. What I shared is a short version of my story, my journey, and the system, how you can become mighty from muted, how I improved myself and empower others. And I want you to think about this. Now you have the knowledge, but knowledge is nothing. It's just information until you start to use it. What is one action you will take today? Put it into the chat. Maybe it's you're gonna speak up in a meeting. Maybe you will go to lunch with somebody to get to know them more closely, to get to know their family. Elevate, yes. Thank you, John. I am starting a leadership group coaching in May, and I invite you to come deep dive into the 5 voices framework. We all have a song in our heart. You have a mighty voice. You deserve to be heard. It's time to use it. Never leave the world without your song unsung. Thank you.
That's Hope Yin, everybody. Hope Yin. Thank you so much. I got a couple questions for you, Hope. Thank you so much for sharing that. My first question is, what was your dream in English?
My dream in English. Oh my God, you're asking such a hard question. I truly do not remember. I just remembered that I was interacting with others in English. Maybe I need to go back to my memory lane here.
Well, that would be interesting. I'm interested in that. Okay, but the second one is then, Hope, you're saying too that English as a second language and of course with your culture, how do you use your own culture to help your clients?
Oh, such a good question. And we just talked about it, like yesterday was the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
I celebrated the day with my mom and my sister and family, and we gave out lucky money to our children. And I think the culture is you something you celebrate, something you are proud of.
Yes.
And to me, I really think about that in my home. We celebrate the US holidays as well as the Chinese holidays. So by celebrating both, we didn't have less, we have more. So I am genuinely interested in other people's culture,
Hmm.
religion, belief, philosophy. And I think because I had this journey myself, I kind of can empathize that even more.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed even more over the last year is that this is the importance too of us as leaders, right? In the leadership, one of the most important things you do is create the culture. So, for instance, as parents, you create the cultures for your children. As CEOs, you create the culture for your teammates or employees. And it's one of the most important and valuable things that all the my other friends who are experts in the areas keep sharing is that when you get the cultural right, almost everything else will fall in place and that you'll achieve your goals, such as recovering some of this $2 trillion. My last fun question for you, Hope, is what would you do with $2 trillion?
Oh, I actually answered this question about 10 years ago. I was working for the largest financial company, leading global teams. As the leader, I build that kind of culture, everybody is included. So this one day, we were having a team meeting virtually, and we have some fun activity. The fun activity, one of the questions is, if you have $1 million, what are you going to do? And people answer all differently. I'm going to buy a big house. I'm going to buy a great car. No judgment. We're all living our own life.
Yeah.
However, my answer then was, well, I had enough for myself. So if I have an actual $1 million just drop from the sky, I am going to use that to pay to the underrepresented community, underdeveloped
Hmm.
country,
Oh.
boys and women who need
Oh.
more than me. So if I have
Oh.
$2 trillion, that's what's gonna happen.
Well, Hope, I don't know why I had the vision like in Squid Games, where the big ball just drops money on you. And I look
Right.
forward to that day because the world would be a better place. World's already a better place because Hope Yin is here. Hope, thank you so much and happy Lunar New Year to you.
Thank you, John.
All right, well, we've been listening to Hope Yin, and now we have our next speaker ready. This speaker, she's a fifth generation entrepreneur. Her last company, Real Talk, was known for being North America's first and largest platform on entrepreneurial mental health. I'm in a mastermind with 65 CEOs. So, by the way, next speaker, I'm going to hopefully share some of the messages with you. She's going to talk about possibility executed with artificial intelligence. She's hitting all the keywords right now. Please, let's welcome Cherry Rose Tan. Hello, Cherry. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here. Love the energy that's happening with this showcase. So maybe where I want to first start, folks, I'm grateful that you're all here. So what I'm super excited today is for us to go on a bit of a journey. So just a bit of context, I am a serial entrepreneur. You heard that right. So 20 years as an entrepreneur, fifth generation entrepreneur as well. But the other thing to know about me is that I love teaching. I love being an educator. So previously, I've been a former K to 8 teacher. I've also been an MBA instructor. And so, one of my things that I get so excited about is essentially bringing the classroom, especially the insights of innovation and AI to you. So, how we're going to do this is I want to take us on a 15-minute possibility field trip to really give you a taste around the history of AI, right? So, some context about what's happening in this global conversation, and also why this moment in time for every business, for every event, for every organization is so profound. Now, you can imagine for us to go on any trip, we can only get to our destination if we know where we're starting from. So, maybe the kickoff question that I love for us to get present to You can open up the Zoom chat, but I'd love to hear from folks. How are you really feeling about AI? Um, and by the way, I'm going to invite folks as well. If you're feeling all kinds of emotions, like you're feeling excited about it, you're feeling the positive stuff, and you're also kind of feeling the negative, like the overwhelm, etc. I'd love to hear both, but just curious to do a gut check with folks. Like, how are we feeling about AIs, just to get really present with that? Okay, so I'm just kind of looking into the chat. I'm hearing excited but cautious. Oh, running an entire business with AI. Ooh, okay. Excited to learn more about that. Making videos with AI already. Okay, love it. I can resonate that with that as well. I know, especially with some folks that I've been talking to just yesterday, I was talking with some folks about AI. I know some people are feeling a bit overwhelmed. Also seeing curious and cautious. Okay, I'm seeing stuff around healthcare on AI, Gen AI, ooh, agentic AI as well. Okay, so we're gonna touch on some of those things. Love it. Okay, so as you get present in terms of how you're feeling about AI, what I'm excited to do with this field trip is we're going to cover two areas. So first, we're going to go on a history tour on AI, and then I want to talk about some opportunities that are upcoming. So, the first part, let's talk about the history. Let's talk about the context. So, did you know that, first of all, AI isn't new at all? Now, in my industry that I work from, that I build from, I come from startups and venture capital. And really, frankly, when I think about my fellow operators, when I think about VCs who are investing into the space, a lot of them have actually been using AI for the last 10 to 15 years. But here's the cool thing. AI has evolved so much that what I often tell folks is that there's actually now three eras of AI. And so let me talk about that history, the three eras. So the first place I want to take you to, so first part in our history tour here, is let's talk about the past. And what the past is all about is about predictive AI. Now, the way to think about this is predictive AI is that this is AI that is using historical data. Okay, data that it's getting from customers, data that we're seeing sometimes in public because it's on social media. And we're using this data to be able to forecast trends, behaviors, and even potential outcomes. And we see this every day, right? So we see things, for example, when you go on social media, for example, something like Instagram. I've been joking with folks that I feel like lately maybe I've been buying a little bit more than usual because, for example, based on my consuming patterns of what I read, what I like to look at, what I follow, in return, I'm getting shown a lot of products that are related to that, right? So there's retailers, there's people in e-commerce who's using predictive AI for that purpose. And not only are we seeing this in the world of places like retail, we're even seeing this in all kinds of industries. So let me give you a concrete example here. Uh, One of my favorite startups that I find so exciting is the startup called Wattpad. And very recently, especially the two founders who were part of that. So especially Alan and Ivan, who created the startup, and shout out as well. I'm giving them a shout out because they are Asian tech founders in particular. They created an incredible company called Wattpad. Now, if you, case you haven't heard about it, um, this is the destination, this is the spot that people go to when you are a big fan of a particular, let's say, franchise. So, for example, if there was something you were really passionate about, like I know back in the day, things like Harry Potter, things like One Direction, what happens is these really passionate fan communities go and they go to Wattpad to create their fan stories. Now, the thing about this that you might not know is that Wattpad has been able to defend their position, especially in a very complicated industry, an industry where a lot of the other people they're competing with, major film studios, major publishers who have millions or sometimes billions of dollars, they've been able to defend their position because of the data, because of their ability to use predictive AI. So I'll give you some concrete examples. For those of you who have a Netflix subscription, if you've ever seen the film, or there's multiple films now, if you've ever seen The Kissing Booth on Netflix and you saw Kissing Booth number one, Kissing Booth number two, Kissing Booth number three, and Joey King, who's now come out as a Gen Z actress, famous in her space, something like The Kissing Booth came out from all these Wattpad stories where what's so powerful about what they're doing is because they have so much data, they're able to actually predict, hey, if we take this story that's really popular on our platform and we turn it into a movie, we think that it's going to do well. And now there's a lot of other folks since then who are also using this particular strategy. So, right, so that first piece, when we're talking about the past in terms of AI, so we've got predictive AI. So that's the past. Now, the present that I want to talk about, this is one that I think so many people are using right now, is generative AI. So it's this piece here. So generative AI, things like ChatGPT 5, Google Gemini 3, we have Claude, etc. And generative AI is all about using prompts. Okay, so requests that we are making to the AI and being able to create new and what I like to call diverse outputs because of this. So imagine that you're able to talk to, let's say, ChatGPT, and ask it to be able to build images, text, right? Maybe the draft for your next blog post. We have generative AI that's developing entire songs. We've got Gen AI that's developing videos and more. And one of the major concepts about this, there's entire communities out there where people are sharing their best prompts, right? The best way to talk to the AI so that they're getting value is this idea of garbage in, garbage out, right? So the better that we can prompt, right? Being detailed about what we want to see from the output, being specific about how the AI should think about this, right? So, for example, when I'm using AI in my own work, especially when it comes to stuff around video and creating content, before I start asking the AI to go and let's say draft something, I'm feeding it a lot of my previous posts. I'm feeding it my own biography and saying to that AI, hey, I want you to pretend that you're Cherry Rose Tan, serial tech founder and innovation and mental health speaker. And if you were speaking to this audience of folks, you know, this is the tone I would want you to speak in before you start developing all this stuff for me. And so in that Gen AI world, things are, you know, growing very, very quickly. And I would imagine, especially in the next few years, we're going to see all kinds of Gen AI that are going to create in other formats that we haven't even thought about. Okay, so that's that piece on Gen AI. Now, the last piece that I want to talk about here for the three eras of AI, and not that I should have favorites, but it is my favorite right now because I'm the most excited about the potential of this, is what's coming up in the future. And in the future, because I already saw some drops in the chat, we're talking about agentic AI. Now, if you're new to this, if you haven't heard about this yet, what this is that this is AI where it does two things. Okay, so the first thing it does is this is AI that can make decisions on its own. Okay, so it's not like every time you want it to do something, you're having to prompt it every single time. The other piece about agentic AI is that it can also think on its own. So if you're thinking about the base word like agentic, the word agent, it's kind of like, you know, like 007, it being able to act as an agent for you. And the analogy that I love to give to so many folks, organizations that I talk to, event organizers that I work with, is imagine if you could have your own team of virtual assistants, okay, or part-time team members that are able to kind of work with you every single day. And it's not just now CEOs right, who get access to having an EA or a VA. Imagine if every single employee, every single event organizer can have their own mix of AI agents that can help them. So I want to give some concrete examples to really make this come to life. So, first of all, one that I want to share that is really hot on the news right now um, is this idea of open Claude. So, if you haven't been reading the AI news, uh, Claude and Claude Cowork, right? So, these particular things have been really popular for folks. And there was an incredible tech entrepreneur. His name is Peter Steinberg, and he creates something called OpenClaw. And at the time, he OpenClaw and Claude, because they sound very close together, he was inspired about building something to be able to extend the utility of AI that we're seeing right now. So the way that OpenClaw works is I want you to imagine that this is like your personal AI assistant, and you can connect this particular AI to your WhatsApp. So it's actually seeing, let's say, texts that you're doing to your team, maybe relationships that you're managing at a personal level. You can connect it to your emails. And essentially, what's happening with the OpenClaw system is that you're able to train this personal AI assistant to do all kinds of things. Now, I want to say, because I've had so much fun doing this, myself and my fiance, who also works in startup and VC, we're having a lot of conversations on AI. And very recently, we've been installing it, especially in the last like month or so, into our own WhatsApp. And we now have this like shared kind of like AI system we call Quaddy. So it's got like a lobster that now is kind of like our relationship AI and kind of like the personal assistant for both of us as a couple. And so that's been really cool to do goal setting from that place. And so that's a little bit taste of what is possible in the world of agentic AI. And there is more to come in that particular space. Okay, so now the next piece I want to share this last bit with the last few minutes is I want to talk about the opportunity that is available in the AI space, right? This possibility field trip. So two opportunities that are available. So the first I want to share here is what I like to call the next generation. Now, especially because I know I'm talking to a lot of event organizers here, I bet you have a lot of organizations or clients that are dealing with multi-generational workforces. And one of the things I get so excited about is the up and coming generation. Now, did you know that millennials are the largest generation in the workforce? And what's happening is 70% of millennials right now are using AI weekly. And on top of this, if this blew my mind when I saw this, 93% of Gen Z are using AI weekly. And so when we're thinking about all of the up and coming folks, right, who are going to be our future leaders at our events, future leaders in our workplace, there's a huge potential right now for us to increase productivity, to increase the way we create by thinking about how our new and upcoming team members are going to be able to adopt AI. So that's what I call the next generation. Big opportunity there. And then the last piece I want to share here is this second opportunity, which is what I call data is queen or data is king. And what this means is that if you happen to be working with clients or you're in an industry that has a lot of historical or proprietary data, you have incredible opportunities, okay, to produce products, to produce services that can deliver unparalleled levels of service. So, for example, for myself, when I speak on stages about AI, it's been amazing to speak to not just industries that adopt AI very quickly, but industries, for example, like construction, like real estate, et cetera, that have a lot of this data because of all the work that they've done previously. And the other part that's really key as well, I was name dropping earlier, right? We have ChatGPT, we have Google Gemini 3, et cetera, these prominent AI that a lot of people are using. And my prediction, you hearing it from me right now, my prediction is that, even though things like ChatGPT have had a really big foothold in terms of the market, who've been prominent leaders, I actually feel like companies like Google and Gemini 3, which is their latest model, are going to actually surpass many of the other AI. And the reason is their data, right? So imagine Google, who is the basis for so many workplace suites, is the basis for Google search. Google is processing 400 times more inquiries than ChatGPT, right? So just think about the exponential growth that's going to happen there. And so, as we wrap up here for today, that's a small snippet, small preview, right? 15-minute preview on what it means to look at possibility, to think about how we can use AI in our own way. And so, as I invite you to kind of think about this as we wrap up this field trip, I want you to make a promise to yourself, right? Like, what is, one thing, right? Could be one AI tool, one step that you might be inspired to try. And so thank you so much for being here. And yeah, excited for us to continue more conversations on AI and for you to explore AI in your own communities.
Cherry Rose Tan. Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is great. Our next speaker, too, is also in the AI space, so we're going to do
Love
some
it.
related things. But I got a couple of questions for you. I did want to share
do
this,
it.
too. This was from my friend Rick Altman, and he talked about, for those who are under a rock and maybe don't know something about AI, or you want new facts, this is what he called the race to a million, right? These are all these different services and how long it took him to get to 1 million users, right? Just to show you the impact of AI. Netflix took 3.5 years. You want to take a guess on Kickstarter? You can guess any number. It's okay.
Oh, maybe 2.5 years.
Oh, you're so smart. Look at that. 2.5 years. Airbnb, 2.5 years. Check it out. Twitter, 2 years. Took them 2 years to get to 1 million, right? And, these are services that are big. But look at 13, 10,
Wow.
7, 5. Instagram took 2.5 months. But ChatGPT is actually, you can see it. Well, it's actually there, but here, I'll zoom in and I'll show you. It took 5 days.
Wow.
5 days. And so that's the impact that AI is having everywhere. And so I have a couple questions for you. What's your best personal AI win? You talked about the system you developed, with your significant other. I'm just curious if there's a win in there, like something that you really appreciate.
I think for me right now is like honestly building my own team of like AI agents of like if I had to hire this, instead of hiring this, how could I train an AI agent to do something? Because I always think about it as roles first. So
Yes.
I'll give you an example, right? In terms of content right now, John and I, we were having a conversation about this before we went live. And I'm in the middle right now of about to roll out like a content strategy on LinkedIn where I'm posting every single day. And the content strategy for that is pretty intense because the way you have to deliver value in terms of the visuals and in terms of the text is it's a lot. And at the same time, I'm also about to like launch a whole video podcast that's got like 28 episodes, 28 episodes that we've planned really carefully for season one. I know for a fact that I wouldn't be able to produce that much content without AI. And so, for example, like thinking about the whole suite of different types of AI tools, really love, for example, as well, like Claude Cowork,
Yes.
it's just doing amazing things. And so I really love this idea of using AI to build team and then also using AI to like what I call collapse time, which is like that graph you're talking about. How can I get the result much, much earlier?
Well, what's one of your top tips? So here, I'll share one of mine now is that I got a friend, David Litvin, who's actually creating AI models. You can give it a piece of clothes and he'll create the model for that. And he gives it back to websites who use that. And so he got me to use AI not to answer the question. He gets AI to first write the prompt. So I've changed almost all my
Nice.
inquiries. Instead of saying, give me 10 social media posts, write me a post, right? In whatever, in my style, write me the prompt to write me 10 social media posts. And the AI spits out prompts that I would never give. And they all just get better. What's one of your top tips, Trey?
I think for me is depending on what you want to use the AI for, like getting really excited about sharing like the most world-class examples of how you want it to think. So I'll give you a real life example. Claudie that I mentioned earlier, that's our name for our open claw, personal assistant. When my partner and I started having like a shared WhatsApp for Claudie, one of the things I told my partner is one of my favorite couples right now in the creator space, they're incredible operators as well, is Alex and Layla Hermosi. They're killing it at the content game and
Oh,
they're so fantastic as entrepreneurs. They know how to scale. And so if you look at them last year, they were posting all kinds of job posts about, hey, we're hiring a chief media officer. Hey, we're hiring like an EA to the CEO. And so they still had the posting up. So I actually fed it through Claudia and I said, hey, I want you to pretend that as if here's the job posting. Like, look at what Layla and Alex Hermosi are doing. Look at all the companies that they're managing. And this is who I want to be a few years from now. So I want you to think from that world-class place.
yes.
So, like, who are the people that
Yeah.
you can draw from? Like, really feeding that context.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you talked about agentic AI. What's a wish or a prediction you have for AI like 5 or 10 years into the future? What's something you'd like to see?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe, okay, maybe my prediction on this is I think the personal productivity that each person can have. I was telling earlier about this idea. It's not going to be just CEOs now or senior leadership that have these teams, but now every single worker, every single employee has that. What I get excited about is now every single individual has the capacity to be a creator or to be an entrepreneur in their own form. And so I just love this idea of like the power going back to different people and people
Yes.
people being able to create in different formats, people being able to create any kind of agent or product that they want. So I just feel like that's going to be the norm in the next, I don't even think it's 10 years. I think it's going to be in the next like 2 to 3 years that that's
Like
going to
like
happen.
every kid's going to have an app that's doing something for them, right? Something
Yeah,
like
I
that,
have
maybe?
university students who are age 18 who have already built apps, who are already monetizing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow.
already here.
Very cool. Well, Cherry, thank you again for being here. And stick around if you do have a few minutes. I might be able to have time for a panel at the end with our good friend Hope and a few others. So thank you again. Everyone, let's give Cherry Rostan
Thank you for having me.
applause. Thanks, Cherry. Outstanding. All right, our next speaker is ready. He's the director at Kyndryl in the healthcare technology business. He's a PhD, MBA, RM, BCMAS, PMC, II, PMP, CSM, CSPO, and an LMNO. He's going to share from refugee to boardroom, reimagining AAPI leadership at the intersection of health, identity, and impact. Coming to the AANHPI stage, let's welcome David Doan. Hi, David. Thank you for
Hello, how are you
joining us
doing?
today.
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted to just share kind of, openly, candidly. I don't have a
Yeah.
presentation really set up, but I wanted to just give you all a glimpse of some of the topics that I've been made to share on different forums and conferences and so on. So I think my the stories that tend to resonate with people a lot is more so, less so of what I do, even though what I do every day is very interesting. I've been a registered nurse for 32 years with many other degrees and just been able to work in 5 different countries just because one of my passions has always been wanting to learn about the differences in healthcare systems in different countries. So that's taken me to different countries and allow me to really acknowledge that there is no one perfect healthcare system. Otherwise, we all would adopt that. So that's kind of the boring part of it. But my deep experience is really not just healthcare, but deep in technology. So it's not common, I think it's more common nowadays to have someone with deep clinical experience and background, both from a critical care side, but also behavioral health too, is to really appreciate and understand the importance of technology as as an enabler. Technology has moved so quickly and so fast that I feel like I don't always feel like I know enough to help our clients. But then there's a lot of times when I work in the healthcare industry, the industry is slower than other industries. So it's a very interesting paradox. And mainly is because in healthcare, there's a challenge of trust, or the challenge is about trust. Technology and humans sometimes requires that the clinicians, especially the physicians, the nurse practitioners, and just anybody who is a clinician, they feel threatened, and they are also trained to make sure that everything that they do, even at the extender of their work, is safe, and it is definitely beneficial for the client and is about health outcomes. As you know, in healthcare, you don't really get to clinical evidence based medicine until there's a body of research that gets published. And you know the publication cycle takes years. And you know that without the data from the experiments that are well designed, you're not going to get the data. So you see how the lag sometimes is about at least 2 to 5 years before you even get any peer review articles that said implementing X technology can yield Y outcomes. So the challenge that I work with in the consulting firms, and I work in previous firms as well, is to really address the element of trust. Because without that, you really can't implement advanced technology. And Sherry spoke very well about not just technology, but advanced technology that takes you all the way up to agentic AI. I do a lot of presentation on just what's the difference between those various AI and tailoring it to the clinicians so they can understand and appreciate the responsible AI, and really the need and the importance to really understand why they have to really rely on data and trust. So I think that's a whole topic in itself. So I really enjoy presenting at different conferences about some of the research I've done. So some examples will be, if you all are attending HIMSS in Las Vegas the first week of March, I will be co-presenting with Dell. I have presented other conferences recently at Chime, and then there's a Vive coming up that I'm not going to Vive because I'm actually going to and out of the country. I'm going back to Vietnam for the very second time in my life. So I have another conference in Vietnam. I also, my PhD is in health administration and public health. So I sit with the American Association of Professional, American Public Health Association, APHA. And APHA is a national organization that is nonprofit of researchers and academians. And there is what we call a section called Health Information Technology. And within the HIT section is an AI ambassador. So I'm one of the AI ambassador that we present research. So at the recent DC conference in November 2025, I presented on the topic of how this particular AI solution has helped address the hospital-acquired infections that not just save lives, but also to yield a lot of financial outcomes in support of the compliance that is required to be reported by the CDC, the NIH, etc. I know all this is boring. What I'm trying to make everyone aware of is, because I am a clinician, I'm an advocate of connecting technology leaders with the business leaders. So when I talk to CIO, CDO, or digital or data officer, CIO also means innovation officer, and technology, of course, is that don't feel like your role is minimized, because sometimes they get offended when I say technology is the enabler, but the strategy needs to be driven by the business. What I'm trying to say is you have to have alignment, because as a clinician, I see so many times, if not 9 out of 10 times, where a sexy, state-of-the-art technology solution is deployed, but there's no value. There's no value for a lot of reasons, including organization change management. That's another topic all in itself when you're implementing agentic AI, is OCM to like the 10th degree on steroids because there's a true need for upskilling and a different type of change management that is not typically has been appreciated from other technology deployments in the past. Because sometimes the technology team does not really talk or communicate or understand what I call use cases. Use cases are very important. You cannot just insert an agent into a workflow that does not make sense. The agent needs to be also presented at the point of care, so that way it's meaningful. So here we go too deep. Let me take it all the way back. So that's the work that I do. I'm also an advocate for health equity. And health equity really relies on social determinants of health. And so much to talk about because health equity is one of the fifth pillar of the quintuple aims. We started with a triple aim, quadruple aim, now is quintuple. And being in a minority, I do appreciate that the zip code you live in, which is really the line from Obama, or that whether you have someone who look or relate to you, particularly in mental health, really has a high correlation, anywhere between 40 to 80% of health outcomes. So, for example, if you have a grandmother who's about 70 years old, who only speak a certain language and prefer a certain cuisine, and that your grandmother's practitioner, GP, or PCP is someone who is 38 years old, white male, they may not always relate. And can you imagine if there is a need for psychotherapy or counseling? There may be a mismatch. So I'm an advocate for that. And how do I show that I'm an advocate? I talk about it. I really present some use cases, some teaching. So I belong to the International Vietnamese Mental Health Association. So I do a lot of panel discussion and different topics about the need to have culturally competent care. I speak at different university medical students to really help them to understand that is really the bedside manner and really listening to the patient and not refer patient as diagnoses are very important. And I give specific examples. Health equity is also about stigma, removing that. So something very personal, I'm going to get a little personal when I close out this session, is whenever I think about certain diagnoses or conditions that are more prevalent in the Southeast Asian culture, I am very sensitive to the need to address stigma. My younger brother passed away from liver cancer 8 years ago, my only brother, from undiagnosed hepatitis B carrier. So I have always been a champion in really promoting education and preventive health because depending on where you live in the world, there may be lack of vaccine, or maybe you're past the Hep B virus is passed down from maternal transmission, which is the number one common case. So people assume that people have the carrier for other reasons besides what I just mentioned. It is also preventable and there's treatment. So there is a high probability that someone will end up with 1 in 5 or 1 in 4, depending on the stats, will end up having liver cancer and pass away at young age. So I speak on that a lot and have been on boards to address how can we work with the CDC and policy around that. So those are just example of what I do is a lot of nonprofit work. So it's taken me many years. I just turned 55 to really accept my identity. And I say that not just to sound like a cliche. I'm a product of a rape and I've been in foster care and I know what it's like to immigrate as an immigrant. I know what it's like when half of the boat people in that same boat did not survive. I know what it means when there's miracles that happen that I'm still alive. I don't want to go into a lot of details. I presented at different forums, such as at ASCEN, which is a Pan-Asian professional organization, as an example. And the journey takes me to, I've seen horrific acts of injustices, and there's a lot of graphics, and I have experienced PTSD from it, seeing people torture, rape, abused, gunshots, and many people's lives pass. living in a refugees camp in Malaysia for almost a year and a half. I know what it's like. I know what it's like not being wanted in the family. I know what it's like to be also molested by two of my uncles. I say all this is there's a need for leaders to be very authentic and to really share all sides of who they are. Because when you do that, what you do is you present yourself as someone who is real, who has lots of experiences. And I don't want to assume everybody's experience is traumatic or despair in any way. It's more about speaking from the heart, because that's when you really are able to influence people and move people in a different way, not with your technical skills or your academic skills, is to have the empathy to listen to others and to bring people along. And I truly think that is a trait of a good leader. So I pause here because I think I am now at time, but I don't have anything prepared, but what I can tell you is lots of experiences brings lots of opportunity to share stories in different forums with different constituents. And that's really when I think the beauty of connection comes.
Standing, let's thank David Doan. David, thank you. Uh, I'm just going to share with you, right? Stephanie said your story is powerful and motivating. I love the authenticity. And I wrote, when you share your authenticity, you have the ability to change the room. And you just did that, David. Again, I'm here with National Speakers Association. I get to see a lot of the top speakers in the world. And uh, I think I tell other speakers, authenticity is the one thing you can work on every single day. So again, I appreciate that you were here. And David did say that he, wasn't 100% prepared today. But David, I think that everything in life has prepared you for the moment that you get the opportunity. So I appreciate you that you said yes. I have a couple questions for you. You know, how did you choose positivity after so many challenges? You can easily make another choice. I've been in that position too, but you somehow chose positivity, and of course, you chose achievement as maybe one of the coping strategies. I don't know what it is, but how did you do it? How did you choose positivity after so many challenges?
Oh, great question. I think that a lot of it is cultural. We are so good as Asian. I'm speaking for myself, by the way, as how I grew up is that you don't want to attract attention to yourself. You don't want to feel like you need to have people pity you. That's the opposite when I share my story. So I do need to strike a balance.
Right.
And I've gone through a lot of, I think when you go through a lot of pangs, I've gone through therapy, victim therapy, many other types of therapy. I can speak from experience is um, it allows you to take some space to accept what has been presented to you. Because I think all of us are faced with whatever challenges. We never want to compare our challenges because that's very personal. But then what you do with it, I think is more therapeutic for me. It's okay to talk about it, but what really excites me and motivate me is how am I able to use my experiences to really help someone,
Yes.
and helping someone really just mean to understand and relate and empathize. And even if it's sympathize, it's okay too. Being a nurse, it helps me to understand that a lot. So when someone say, what is their pain level, when I ask them and they say it's a 7 or an 8, even though I know that they have a history of drug seeking behavior, as a nurse, a clinician, I don't make any other assumption except at face value, that is how they feel. So I
Yes.
think I take that stance is taking a more helpful way to turn things that are not pleasant into something positive because I get recharged and renew by being able to feel like I can influence someone's mind and heart.
Well, I'd like to return a little bit of your authenticity. And so I actually now share this too. And I think a key trait for speakers, as we talk about, is don't do therapy from the stage. So, while you have had traumatic things happen, or I've had traumatic things happen, one of the things to do is first work on it yourself. to you can get to the place where right you can deal with it. It is not doesn't have emotional control of you, and then you can do what you were saying is use that experience possibly to help others. So this is one of my experiences, David. My dad was a doctor and my mom was a nurse. So it's funny on the healthcare side, right? And it was in the '70s when divorce wasn't yet as popular as it is now. My dad fell in love with a cancer patient. And so this is also in the '70s. There was not a lot of well-meaning advice or books or other things happening. So they
Mhm.
thought the best idea. I'm the last of five kids, by the way. So I'm youngest. I'm about 6 years old at the time. They came in and they said, "Dad fell in love with a cancer patient, but she's going to die soon. And when she dies, we'll get back together again."
Mm. Wow.
And so, I feel Southern, right? Bless her heart. She didn't just make it to a year. She made it to 5 years. And then she died, and then those kids are like, "Oh, we're so sorry," and "Oh, we're getting back together." And that's when my mom came in, broke down, and cried. And now that I'm older, I recognize that was never going to happen.
Mhm.
But I'm 6, right? And then I'm 11, and these are your parents, right? Even all of us have this thing with our parents, right? We're supposed to trust our parents. They're supposed to help guide us. And now this whole thing has turned into like a big lie, and it really disrupted my childhood, and it helped me choose what I do today. Like as a professional speaker, one thing now I watch very carefully, how do I use my words?
Mhm.
All right. And it also turned me into a team builder and a facilitator. Like my kids actually learned enough of my facilitation skills that the teachers came back one day and said, "My son broke up a fight in the schoolyard by facilitating, but not by fighting someone else."
Mm.
And so all of those things, that experience, while highly traumatic for me in my lifetime, came back, and again, I chose positivity and chose it to make purpose in my life. So,
So proud of you. Thank you for
oh,
sharing.
thank you, David. And yeah, my mom again was a registered nurse herself too. That was actually she actually gave up her degree as a nurse early on, and got an MRS. She got married with 6 months to go on her degree, and then after she
Mm.
got divorced, she came back as a CNA, a certified nursing assistant, and eventually studied and became an RN. So she achieved a goal like almost 20 years later, that a goal that she gave up to be married and become a mom. And I thought that was amazing. You know, thank you again, David, for sharing your authenticity. And again, this is an unusual part. Like this right here, I've heard in the last 2 years is one of the most astounding experiences. Seeing every speaker is Asian Pacific Islander. So I'm curious, what's your experience being an Asian Pacific Islander speaker at conferences today, whatever viewpoint you have?
Another great question. You know, I never really accepted me being Asian until at the same time my brother passed away 8 years ago because I
Yes.
was losing. Um, I know you all don't know my story, but I'm in the middle of writing a book that is titled Unwanted.
Ooh.
Unwanted from my country,
Ooh.
unwanted from my family,
Ooh.
unwanted from society, because there's a little bit about me that I have not shared, is because of the two um, molestations, it really confused me as a person. So really struggle to really accept who I am. Um, it took me, I came out very late.
Mhm.
I did the particular thing. Everybody, dated girls and was engaged to a female, and I just was very much psychologically in turmoil, and
Yes.
it took a while for me to come out. So I never really feel like I identify with anything. And when you are a product of a rape and a foster home, you don't really have an identity. I literally just met my biological dad 8 years ago, and it
Oh.
seems like he just like a stranger to me, like anybody else. So your question is, I did not realize that sharing my identity
Yeah.
is so powerful.
Yeah.
And sharing it in a way that is not, again, not about pity, is
Yeah.
more about really sharing how we are similar in excuse me. So I'm also connected to another nonprofit recently, Overseas Vietnamese, where Vietnamese people after the war are dispersed in like 80, 90 countries, and we might all have different accent, different culture of where we grew up because we all have to be dispersed. But what's something that's very common is you still feel like you're connected in some way as if they are my good friends, even though I might just meet them for the very first time. And that's the unique feeling that you get when you share a racial ethnic identity, still appreciating how different we all are. As we all know, it's not a monolithic. You hear that all the time, and it's really true. But there's still enough of similarities that you really appreciate that. I'm an advocate for female Asian leaders is because of my experience defending Filipino nurses. I'm not Filipino, but I see how they were mistreated by
Yeah.
many physicians because
Yes.
they were quiet, they more analytical. They don't want to always call the doctors out of respect. But I have to defend them so many times because as a male nurse, you get a lot of special treatment, not right to receive that treatment, but something I take it and I turn it around for the goodness of all the other nurses I work with. I actually told many physicians and surgeons, do you realize that in the Philippines, nurses are trained 5 years, not 2 years
Oh,
or 3 years or 4 years,
yeah.
and they are trained with US textbook. Do you realize that they are probably more intelligent than many of the residents? So I defend that. So I'm always an advocate
Wow.
for female leaders. It's because I want their voice to be louder, because I
Yes.
know what it's like when I did not have a voice. So those are the things that I lost my response when I got so passionate is how does it feel? It feels like I am, if I want to be selfish, I cleverly use it in a way to really help people to appreciate accepting all races. So
Yes.
I have nephews who are from Latin American country and also Black. So when I tell that to people, they don't understand what it means. So when people assume things about me, it's like, no, I understand what it's like to be a Latino or a Black American because I have nephews that I talk to them about that. So those experiences, I challenge all of you if you don't already do that. Takes what's so unique about it, but make people come join you
Yeah.
because you don't want to use your uniqueness to segregate the story, but to bring forth what's so common about how we all feel.
Well, thank you for that, David, too, right? And like things like mental challenges or alternative lifestyle, whatever choices like that, is not always easy in many Asian cultures. And I just want to share a name. Alapaki Lee was somebody who I met at the Gottman Institute. So the Gottman Institute, right, is the largest institute for couples therapy, and they are writing a new case study around the use of their parts in gay couples. And Alapaki is actually has a Caucasian husband, and the two of them have a practice, right, that specifically focuses on gay couples, and they have some very interesting, unique insights that makes the relationships different. The other one too, I really want to share, David, is that one of my friends here in Seattle runs a kind of like an awareness piece of exercise, and he said, oh, he actually wrote a book called what is it, something like the inside story of hate. And he interviewed 10 people who were members of hate groups that rescinded their hate groups. And the one thing that all 10 had in common was that they made a friend with somebody in the group they used to hate. Like it's impossible
Um,
to hate a whole group once you have a friend inside of it. So I always tell people a tangible action you can make is to make
mm,
a friend. Speaking of friends, David, hopefully you have a few more minutes. I'm going to invite Cherry and Hope back, and I'm just going to have a little panel. Is that all right with you, David?
sure, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Wow, an amazing, amazing conversation with David here. Thank you for being here. And again, I got my friend Hope and I've got Cherry here. And now I'm just going to run a little panel. I got a couple sets of questions for each. Again, each of you can answer whenever you like, and you can also say pass. That's one of my personal rules in a virtual meeting is that I give you the opportunity to speak always. I will check too. I will give everyone an opportunity, but you don't have to say anything. And so one of your ways is that you could say pass if you choose not to say any question, and there's no judgment about it. I'll just move on. So the first question is, what's something that you can share from your childhood? This is where I play the Jeopardy music.
I'll start.
Oh, okay, good. Hope's ready. Hi, Hope.
because I have a pioneer voice, so normally I would be the first one to talk so that other people have a time to think about that answer. I grew up in severe poverty
Mm,
because of the Cultural Revolution happened between 1966 and 1976. I was born in those years in between. My parents lost their job and they were sent to the cornfield to do hard labor. So the life itself was really hard. I think that's probably one of the reasons why today I am very empathetic to all people, like David mentioned, because you just never know what one person is dealing with at home. You may be seeing a smiling face, but you just never know what struggle they may have, what hardship they're going through. And because of that, right now, I am focusing on women leadership development. Thank you,
yes.
David, for being our advocate. I also support financially to Girls Foundation to help other girls to be able to have a good education because for me, education changed my life. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Hope. You know, you remind me too. When my parents got divorced, my dad was a doctor. We were relatively well off, but my mom made the choice to take $0 from my dad. So we ended up in
Mhm.
poverty for a period of time because my mom was on a, nursing assistant salary after that. But it was bold. Like all of us are like, take the money, right? But her principles, like her old school Asian principles, says I don't want any of his money. It's like dirt. To her, it was like dirty money, right? And actually, I'm now David. I'm gonna do something on our Ally side, right? I'm gonna put the ladies here on top. I'm gonna put us here on bottom, only as my gesture.
Oh, thank
Right.
you,
That's
John,
very
for
sweet.
doing that.
There you go. All right, Cherry and David, something from your childhood.
Oh, what actually comes up for me is I actually feel like when you pay attention to your childhood and the things that you're passionate about, the things that you're excited about, I feel like those are the clues to the gifts that you should be leaning on as an adult. So I'll give you an example. I mean, when I was younger, I to be really frank, I struggled a lot around being bullied. My family were Filipino Chinese. I'm a first generation immigrant, and so initially when we first started and came here to Canada, we were also like really poor. And I feel like the things that I leaned on back then as like hobbies, I was like into manga, I was into video games, I was into like solving Rubik's cubes.
Oh, I
You
did
know,
that.
I would be like that person like playing the video games. And back in the day, it's not like the way it is now with the internet. Like if you got stuck on a certain level or quest, you could just search it up now. Back in the day, it's like, oh, you actually have like a notebook and you like write down the clues and you try to remember like, oh, if I mix these two items, I get like a potion. And so why I share this is I spent so many of my early years, I've been an entrepreneur 20 years, spent my early years forcing myself to be almost like someone else. Like, oh, I have to be the person that comes up with the idea, like the creator. I have to be the person that is like the loud voice in the room, right? Like the extrovert. And actually, what I realized is my gift. And I was like dropping some stuff earlier when Hope was talking about the different types, leadership types. Like I know that I'm the guardian. Like I know I'm the person that builds systems. I
Oh,
analyze patterns and things, and that's like something I realized that's been there since I was a child. So that's just been very freeing for me. So the clues of our gifts are already there in our childhood.
I love it, Cherry. I'm the Atari 2600 generation, and my dad once took
Nice.
me on a cross country ski trip. And he's not an athlete, right? And we were playing video games when it came out because it was very popular. And it was telling, like, I would play Space Invaders for 30 minutes with one ship, and then it would be his turn, and he would move and he would die. And then I would play again, and then he walked away. That was my video game experience with my dad. But
That's
he
a
also
clue.
opened up. He also gave me access to like computers, TRS-80s, and CPM machines that played Donkey Kong and Tex, right? Old school, very old school stuff. But that exposure to that technology did really help me make me part of who I am today. David, you want to share anything else from your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna say something positive because I feel like I am so many because the childhood in Vietnam for only 6 years of my life was about survival. So I don't want to talk about that. I also don't want to talk about the experiences when I was in America here. I wanted to share something positive is my mom worked three, four jobs, so I was her spouse. I know that's very weird to say. It's almost like Oedipus Rex. So I took care of my younger brother. He was 3.5 years younger.
Yeah.
And that is a big, difference when you're being told to take care of him, make sure he goes to bed, go take do home. And we have the love of music together. So we play duets all the time. And my first two majors that I got full scholarship for is actually music performance and theater performance. I could not continue on with my education because, as an Asian mom, you have to be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, boring story. So that was devastating. My younger brother did not listen and he double majored in music. So when I remembered me teaching him music and playing duets together, it's still the most beautiful moments when I'm able to touch music. I still play music to this day. It takes me to a different plane
Yeah.
where I am somebody different. I can be creative. I can be free. The word free is very important to me.
Mm.
So I think those moments where I still miss to this day is the ability to share music, which is the universal of, language. I can literally sit next to someone who does not speak the same language, could be a very old young musician, but when you strike a chord together and you hear the melodies, it doesn't matter what language you speak, what political affiliation you are, it's about making music together. And that's what I miss.
I'm a huge fan of music. I want to go backwards though to the, caretaking. My sister, my oldest sister, she was number two. I have an older brother, but she was 9 years older than me. Also got the secondary duty of taking care of me, as a kid. And she said she distinctly remembered carrying me like a football when I was that small, that still that age. And the funny part is that when I wrote my book, she was because she retired, she was the primary reader for my book. And as a tech, she was also a technical writer at her company, and so she had read my book the most times before anybody before it was published. The second part on music, David, is that I'm a karaoke jockey now. I still play a Fender Stratocaster, but I now take the old school version of karaoke, and I'm actually a karaoke jockey, meaning I can actually run the whole room, and people notice that. I bring the culture to the room where it's okay to do anything. Like we want bad singers. We tell people replace talent with theatrics, right, and energy and enthusiasm. That as long as that you're into the song, right, you're accepted here, and you can use your voice. And that's what I've had some amazing experiences. David, you're invited anytime. I run a karaoke every Saturday, 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have people around the world too, England, Australia, and the Philippines. And the guy from the Philippines, number one, had an amazing voice, and number two, actually sang a Cars song while he was waiting to get his car repaired in the car waiting area on Zoom. It was hilarious. All right. The next question is, how is food part of your personal culture? Food. So I'll share mine too. I know Hope just made dumplings, but I still tell people, right, that the comfort food in my house is fried rice. And how you make your fried rice is actually important, whether it's egg first or rice first. All right. And so if you ever seen Uncle Roger online, he's a comedian and he goes and destroys like top chefs like Gordon Ramsay about how they make fried rice. I agree with almost everything he says. Food is part of your personal culture. Anyone?
I'll do a quick one.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Filipino Chinese, Chinese ethnically, Filipino culturally, because initially I'm from Manila. Um, I think what's similar about both of those cultures is I feel like food is kind of the thing that gathers community. I feel like every time I've got I don't know, like a book launch or I'm supporting other folks, I'm like, oh, like let me host you for dinner, or like let's bring people together. And I'm like that personally and professionally. And
Yes.
I actually kind of love it because I feel like regardless if you're like an introvert or an extrovert, or if you're feeling nervous about being at the table, it's like we're all starting from the same place, which is like, oh, we're like here to experience the food. So it's like, it's just a great icebreaker. So that's what I love about it, gathering community.
Yeah, both my dad and mom gave me what I call the dinner party theory, which is you put 6 to 8 random, especially random, very diverse people at a table, and you'll figure it out. right? And it'll be an interesting experience. Hope or David, food is culture.
For me, I think each culture or even family have their own ways of cooking and different cuisine. And for us, not only when we were younger, my parents leveraging cooking as a part of building us to be capable to care about others. Not only just my mom was cooking, every one of us would contribute a dish because we had a big family, 5 children. And so that's a part of how we growing up and cook something to contribute to the family. And now in America, I actually use food as a way to deepen relationship with other people who has never had a hot pot. I invite them to either the restaurant or to our home, enjoy a hot pot. You would not imagine someone like you never had a hot pot, you fall in love for the very first time trying it. That's amazing. I'm going to do this more.
That's an
Yeah.
I had a place called the Dollar Shop here in Seattle before Heidi Lau showed up, and I brought lots and lots of friends to it, and they had never seen anything like it. And it is, you're right, hot pot is definitely a shared experience. David?
I hate talking about food in my family. It's because it is the only weapon they use to show love, and I resent that very much. And the main reason is my mom forced, and she cooks very beautifully and deliciously. Everyone hears it, but I don't really care. It's because she always come over and stock tons of food, and is very controlling. Is a way that she show love. I accept that, but she doesn't know how to say no. I do not eat this kind of food because I'm on a diet or whatever the reason is. And also growing up, it feels like whatever is on my plate, I must eat it into the very end, but I had no control over what I put on the plate. So it is something that I still literally to this day work around that. So what I want to say to my mom and anyone else is don't use it as a weapon to only show love. And it also is a way that someone might control, how to show love, what you eat, how much, and when. So I think that's just my perspective is I definitely appreciate food. I just don't like the intention around it. And
Mm.
we all, if you cannot find a way to show love more than food, then let's have a conversation.
It's a deep concept, right? Food as weaponized food, and but I mean, food is the equivalent of a drug in many cultures, and so it's easily weaponized if you want it to be, and that's an interesting viewpoint. Thank you so much for that, David. And again, for those who don't want to do that, you got to think about are you accidentally doing that, and if so, you might want to unweaponize it. Especially if things like your kids. You know, here's a moderator tip too. For those who moderate panels, one of the other things to do is ask the question and then tell your own story. So number one is it says, I'm not going to go anywhere I'm not going to ask you to go somewhere where I'm not going to go myself. And the second one is that it stalls for different thinking styles to have time to think about their answer. So I'm going to ask this question and I'll tell my own story around it. How are you feeling about the environment now? Right? And like this is 2026. It is not one of our best times. And I'm going to share a story that actually it just happened in 2018 of all things. And this was kind of the beginning, but a very personal experience. I was scoping out an area for a team building event in downtown Bellevue, which is across from Seattle. It's one of the even nicer, more businessy areas, right? Microsoft has big office there. And it's not like downtown crazy, homeless or anything else like that. And I'm walking back to my car, and there's a couple teenager kids, right? A white kid, and all right, so or two teenager kids, and one of the kids starts going "Ching Chong Chinamen" to me, and I'm like first caught off guard. But the second thing I do is immediately pull out my phone. This is something I've been practicing in my head a lot, right? You turn out your phone and turn on your camera, point it exactly direct to, and it said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said." And they turn, they start walking, and I start following them, and they start walking faster. And then I look, right? One of the guys Caucasian who said it, right? The other guy's his friend is black. So my next phrase out of my mouth is like, dude, right? Why are you friends with this guy? In case you didn't notice, you're black, right? I'm brown. He doesn't like me. What are you doing? Right? He didn't say anything. So the two finally walk out, and they walk fast enough they walk out of frame. And I thought, like, I'm clear, so I turn off my camera, and I'm now walking back to my car. I'm gonna like drive. I'm like, again, the adrenaline gets going. No matter how many times you've faced this or whatever. But I have practice, so like, I feel like I'm in control of the situation. And then all I hear is clock, and I turn around. It's a rock, and it's a rock. It's like this big, and I'm like, the only great thing about it is that whoever threw it, whatever teenager, sucks as a thrower. Because it was nowhere near close to hitting me. But the fact was, they threw a rock. And I'm like, really? And again, I take my camera out and they run around the corner and they're gone. And I posted this. And I thought what was interesting around it was like, I said Bellevue is a hate zone or hate crime zone. And I wrote this post about it and I showed whatever video that I had. And it only showed like the back of their hoodies. You couldn't see their face. And somebody actually gave me the feedback too. And they said, you should still submit the video to the police. I said, I can't see their face. I thought it'd be useful, not useful. And they said, the body type, the hoodie, there are still things they could pick up, the gait. And I'm like, wow. So I actually followed up with that. And I don't know, in 2026, I feel lucky. I don't think I've had any major event, but I can still tell you things like getting rid of the AANHPI Heritage Month in May hits me deep. That is deeply personal and not cool with me. So that's how I feel about the environment now. Anybody want to chime in to whatever degree they want to?
I'll chime in because while you were talking about, I have a knot in my stomach.
All right.
We had a lot of such conversation during COVID for the apparent reason because the virus was called a China virus.
Yeah.
And during those conversations, I realized that I never had such conversation with my own children who were born here. So America is the only home they know. And they were called similar things as what you were called. And I didn't know until then, because I live in this city, like one of the top small cities in America for people to live. It's really a safe, pleasant environment. So I was shocked then. And I think what you described is just, other than sadness, maybe a bit of frustration and madness. But I always tell myself that I can only control the things that I can. And what I can control is continue to spread love, kindness, generosity, and help other people to be great leaders. To me, it's not about what political belief you have. We all have different beliefs, that's fine. It's about the basic characteristic of being a great human. And there are so many things I disagree, but I don't want to waste my life, my energy to be something that I cannot change. But I am actively working on to elect the candidate in my state to be the next governor. That's what I can do. Go vote, go continue to be the kindest person you can be.
Yes.
So yeah, if you feel frustrated or sad, knowing that's normal as a person. We're human beings, we're allowed to have such feelings. But do whatever we can to be the next best version of ourselves.
Thank you, Hope. I agree, though. The take action, no matter how you feel, eventually, if you take action, then I think you're doing something. And David, I think, was curious about like this program. That's part of why I do this program, right? It's an all volunteer effort. I do this program to elevate different voices every year. And that's my one piece that I think I can do. Cherry or David?
Do you want me to go first or you go first?
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, okay, so I don't know if people are gonna agree with me on this, and I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
I'm of the attitude that it's actually important to pick your battles, is actually
Yes.
what comes up for me because uh, not not the company I run now, but the previous company I had, which is actually how I became a keynote speaker. I wasn't intending to be a professional speaker. I got discovered because I used to run a mental health movement working with tech CEOs. And we had worked with like 45,000 leaders during those 8 years. I traveled all across North America to do it. And people knew about that story where I built that movement from a personal loss, like a very personal loss in my family. So why I share this is we're living in a climate, just to acknowledge it's oh my gosh, I there's so much anger in the world. There's so much chaos. There's a lot of pain. Like I think people are processing all kinds of things, whether it's like political, economic. I'm involved with an incredible university called Schulich, where I'm working with the next generation of entrepreneurs like Gen Z and millennials, and especially the Gen Zs, the kinds of conversations we're having behind closed doors about what their future looks like. You can imagine for a lot of them, it feels kind of heavy and grim. And so why I just share this is I think, especially for folks that are in this work where you're trying to push for change, but you're pushing for change in a system that doesn't really welcome it, that's having very strong emotions. That's the only thing that comes up for me is just really picking your battles. So for example, I made the personal choice and I know not everybody agrees with it. I made the personal choice two years ago. That's like, you know what? I don't think I want to lead hashtag real talk anymore because the kind of when you lead a company like that, the kind of conversations you're inviting are conversations that are very, very heavy. I think most of the time, like 90% of the time, people come to me, and of course, it's from a place of trust, but they're like, hey, I trust you with this conversation. And
Mm,
it's oftentimes about trauma. It's
mm.
oftentimes about mental illness. It's about divorce, about bankruptcy. And I just felt like at some point, like I wanted to focus on something else. And so now all my work is about women leaders. It's about the next generation. It's about wealth building. It's about what can I possibly give to you so you don't experience what I went through as a woman entrepreneur, but I had to choose between the battles. Like, am I going to go into the battle around wealth and power and thinking about
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, or I'm going to still stay in the mental health trauma? Let me help entrepreneurs in this way. So that's just the what comes up for me is like we can do the impact, but I think we just have to be careful about our capacity.
Yeah, David said free. Like freedom is a word that's very important to me, and having you just having that choice. I think Cherry, lots of our maybe ancestors or others had less choices. All I care about in my life is having two or more great choices. David, well, what would you like to share about the environment now?
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's so much can we talk about. So obviously there's a lot of polarization and I talk about trust. So this is about social trust as opposed to like, and then I also know that comes with it is I share with you social injustices. So this is like social justice issues and we talk about vulnerable communities. So those are the things. So what can I do about it? A lot of it is education, advocacy, and just being a role model. So for example, I have family members that they need to be educated because sometimes people are not informed about something they are vehement about without any substance. So education, but do it in is the how. I wanted to punctuate the how. How we educate someone should not hopefully threaten them or be demean them or make them feel less than because there's a way to do that. So you have to be a leader that you can actually communicate however they want to receive that information. Because I don't want it to say at their level, because that implies they're lower and you're higher in some way. So education, but know how to cleverly share that information so they can actually hopefully change their thinking at the very least, help them to appreciate a different perspective. Advocacy is also role model. Do the work that you do and really exaggerate it in a way. So when I say I support X cause it, let more people be aware of it, but then share the why. Because that way it allows them to see what you're doing because character needs to be shown, integrity needs to be shown, and passion needs to be shown. Because a lot of time we do it altruistically or we think we do it altruistically because the Asian community, we don't tend to tell people, hey, I just earn an A. But in this situation, I think it's different. You do need to take a different stance and say, I am doing this. It's because I want my children to have X if you have children, or I want a community where Y. So that way people can make the connection and see the work that you're doing on, so anyway, I think that's what I wanted to end with, knowing the time is up. Yeah.
All right. Well, our final question, and then on a high note, what can you share with an emerging Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander professional now, right? So they're emerging professionals. From your career perspective, what's like one piece of advice? Maybe you could tell your younger self, or that you want to tell that. What you said, the largest workforce in existence today. What's
Yeah.
something that you can share with
Yeah.
them?
I have to hop off on meeting, so can I go
Yeah,
first?
sure.
So sorry, a little
Thanks, David.
selfish of me. I've always told myself and other people that I mentor who are emerging leaders and professionals is that, first of all, be kind to yourself. I am so tired of being so critical of myself that has really prevented me from thriving. The second thing is the younger generation, no disrespectful to them, is I know everybody want to feel like what they do has to have a social impact. It takes years, it takes patience, you got to know yourself first, because you cannot just assume that very first professional job you are going to make a difference. Find your definition of how to make a difference and define it differently. Because I think people want to be so heroic. It takes a collection of years and portfolio to really say, I'm making a difference. So I think I help people to really define what that is. You can make a difference and impact in so many different ways.
Outstanding. David, thanks again for making an impact here. We appreciate you, and we'll let you head off to your next meeting. All right, let's see. How about Cherry or Hope? Advice to emerging
Yeah,
professionals.
sure. I can go. I think what comes up for me is to be okay to show up every day to do the work. And I think what I mean by this is especially the stuff that I do, because it's working a lot with like CEOs and also working with a lot of entrepreneurs. I sometimes find in the entrepreneurial world, like especially startup and VC, there's a lot of the let's go from 0 to 100. And if you don't do that, then there's like a stigma around that. It's like, oh, why aren't you trying to grow faster? So there's good things in the sense that's great to be ambitious and to think big, but at the same time, there can be so much pressure
Yeah,
around like what does that try to mean to deliver. And so I just tell a lot of folks this is real practice, like I actually plan for myself as an entrepreneur in decades. Like I literally have a document that's my decade vision for what I'm going to do. And I
wow.
think because I have it as a decade, then it's like the way that I think about myself is like, let me make this like a daily practice.
Yeah,
And if we're thinking about just improving 1% better every single day, and you do that over the course of years, you actually do get exponential growth.
you
And so
do.
I just find that's so much more manageable for folks to think about it that way rather than, oh, you're gonna, start VC, go try build $1 billion company. But that's not very helpful from like a tactical perspective of how that like looks like every day and how you show up as a leader. So it's like, yeah, be okay to show up every day to like do the work. And then, yeah, what you can achieve over the long term versus the short term. I think we sometimes underestimate that.
One of my very good friends was the customer service VP of customer service at the Seattle Sonics and then the Oklahoma Thunder, and he gained the reputation from Commissioner David Stern of having the best customer service in all the NBA in a product you can't control. You can't control whether the team wins or lose, but he does do that. And one of the practices he has, and he's taught my team, is the 1%. If you look, he has a card that you hold around your neck. There's like 600 volunteers and employees that have to run an NBA game for every game, and they all choose one thing they're going to do 1% better this game, and then they choose something else the next game or choose something around that. And so that 1% principle is really, really, really valuable, and it's tangible, it's doable, it's achievable, as opposed to make $1 billion company, right? There's only a few people percentage wise who actually get that chance to do that. So Cherry, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And
Thank
now
you.
we'll hear from our good friend Hope Yen.
Yeah, I completely agree, all three of you, what you have shared. So maybe to not repeat what you have shared, I would add that a lot of the emerging leaders believe that they have to know the business, they have to know the skills technically. Absolutely. However, that's not enough. as Asian Americans, we also need to be more fluent in emotional intelligence and social intelligence. What I meant is that, Sherry, you are more familiar with this because you started a mental health movement, which is really understanding mentally, emotionally where we are. It's okay to feel down, but you have to find ways to come out of that pit so that you can be more productive. And also, Sherry, you mentioned that choose your battle. There's so many battles, so much noise. You have to decide where I'm going to focus my
Yeah.
energy on, right? And
Yes.
also, when we talk about a socially intelligence, is to understand what's the power dynamic in a room, in a company, in the country, so that you can navigate the system to maximize what you can do, to maximize your impact, to maximize your lifetime. This is how much time we have on this earth. So do something that's valuable to yourself, your family, your circles, and your country or the world. So
Out-
yeah, one day at a
Outstanding.
time.
Thank you, Hope Yin. We appreciate you being here today. And
Thank
I'm going to
you.
add mine, right, which is for our emerging professionals. I'm going to feel a little Nike. I'm going to say just do it, which is say yes to the opportunities or ask for them, which is volunteer leadership. That's one of your ways to practice leadership before you get the paid position. Find a way to be positive. Know now. I hope today's program will share with you. Others have already done it. That's the great part. Like each of us, too, we stand on the shoulders of many other leaders who have done something before us. And that gives you the opportunity, to say yes to that. I'm so excited for today. I'm going to give some closing words here. We talked about here's some tangible tips, right? On your cell phone, practice turning on your camera is one of the number one ways. You saw what happened here in the last 2 years, that cameras are very powerful in equalizing what's going on that didn't exist years ago. So I think that's one. When people tell you to go home, tell them, okay, I'm here because I live here. Where did you come from? Right? Everyone was an immigrant at some point, by the way, too. Right? Unless you're Native American. And then, on the Stop Asian Hate, it is something I really, really do care about, right? Consider doing something. Be an ally, make a friend, taking the time to welcome somebody so that the people, right? You never know, too, you heard stories today. You might have made one impression by looking at somebody, but as you talk and get to know them, you might get to know another story, and you'll find that all of us have the same purpose in feeling, in belonging, in being seen, being heard, and being acknowledged. Right. So I'm John Shen, your host. I wish you a happy Lunar New Year, Gung Hei Fat Choi, and look forward to May. I will still be celebrating Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month because I am not a federal agency. And actually, watch my feed in May 2nd. I will be the host and helping to produce our Festal. It's over 15 different cultural acts. If you didn't know, Asian Pacific Islanders actually covers over 50 different cultures and 100 different dialects. And that's what we can actually be the largest affinity and maybe the most powerful one day if we could all just get along together. And speaking get along, get together, make sure and check out all of our speakers today. Hope Yin, Cherry Rose Tan, David Doan, and all the others. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody.